Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Star Wars Rebels episode reviews. This is going to be for Season 4, Episodes 7 and 8, Kindred and Crawler Commanders. Two interesting episodes that, while good, and I think potentially at least one of them is one of the best we've seen this season, I think they still carry the main problem I've had with the start of this season of just it really not feeling like the final season. It really feels like they're going to have to really commit to just one big episode at some point, which activates the end of the series. That suddenly ups the stakes to an insane degree, and big stuff is going to happen from here on out. Because right now, it feels like they're almost setting it up that the end of the series is going to be based around the Rebels trying to destroy the plans for the TIE Defender and just eliminating it from production. And I'm like, that is not a very good plot point to end this series on, that they just destroyed this ship. Because even if they have it be this massive sacrifice to destroy that, and you have maybe some of our characters get killed in the process of this last attack on Lothal, the fact that it's based around this ship that they just set up the last couple of episode season and a bit, that is not a strong plot. So it's why I actually really appreciated the end of episode 7 hinting with the Loth Wolves towards some bigger plot on Lothal. That it's not just that this is where they're testing out the TIE Defender, that there's some bigger reason for why the Empire is mining the planet into the ground, why the Loth Wolves have suddenly appeared again and are helping out our team. And it feels like there's something a bit more kind of force focused, mystical going on here, which is why they're kind of trying to connect the Jedi Temple on Lothal to the Loth Wolves, and the fact that in the past the Jedi came to Lothal and something important happened. So that's going to be interesting. Plus, I suppose we also have the idea that the Bendu's on the planet, or is it the same planet? Oh no, I think the Bendu was on a different planet. I'm kind of getting confused now about when we have and have not been on Lothal. If I remember correctly, the previous base where the Bendu was on a different planet, I think. But, we've had a lot of Force-sensitive stuff, and I suppose the Loth Wolves, especially after this episode, it seems to make it clear that they're a very Force-sensitive kind of species of animal, and they kind of seem to have special powers, which is kind of similar to the kind of space whale things we had a season or two ago, where they could go into hyperspace, whereas these Loth Wolves seem to be able to connect with Force users and are aware of stuff going on in the Force. They're called messengers of the Force or something like that, and I'm not sure if we were meant to take away the fact that just in the middle of the planet in the tunnels there's these secret Force sensitive pathways through the planet that can kind of teleport you, or if that is a power that the Loth Wolves are able to do when they get close to the center of a Force sensitive planet. So I wasn't exactly sure if that was meant to be a thing inherent to the planet, or if it was the wolves that were initiating the teleport. I'd lean towards the wolves because they've been shown to have powers being able to telepathically communicate, and there's been slight moments of them showing kind of teleportation and the ability to knock people out and so on. So there's still something to come there. The confirmation as well that they before weren't saying D-O-O-M Doom, they were saying D-U-M-E as in Kanan's last name from his real name, Caleb Doom, which I thought was interesting. They didn't really seem to make any comment on why that was necessarily important, but I like that it seemed to point out just the fact that they knew this, that he really, apart from some early book 1 stuff, season 1 stuff with the Inquisitor, no one's really referenced the fact that that's his actual name. So I actually liked the return of that, and it, because they don't use it too often, it kind of points out that the wolves knowing that means it's something important, and I do appreciate that. But yeah, that's just a Lothwolf stuff at the end, and the suggestion of more going on in the planet. they hint towards a bigger plot point happening, which I'm eager to see what they do with. But, you know, in general, it just helped the group be safe going forward. As for the rest of the episode, I think the standout scene were the two scenes with Hera and Kanan, because I think that's probably been one of the best plot points going forward in the season, has been making their relationship much more clear, having scenes between the two of them where they are just very open about the fact that they're basically in a relationship, but perhaps haven't talked a lot about the nature of their relationship. So a lot of it's kind of unspoken and hasn't been said kind of clearly between the two of them, but they kind of both know that their relationship is super close. It's just kind of undefined kind of close. So I kind of like Kanan being a bit more like, I want to know what the nature of a relationship is, and then kind of Hera being the one kind of more kind of backing off, like, oh, you already know what our relationship is. But the fact is that they have had a few moments now where they've basically went to kiss and have been interrupted, and that happens again. And then I like how the kiss actually happens almost quite suddenly when you don't expect it, because you had now like 2 or 3 times when like something's gotten in the way of it, and then all of a sudden it happens really suddenly, and like it's in front of everyone. Like I think Sabine even says like, look what's happening, and everyone just stares at them. So I appreciate that. And obviously they kind of made it somewhat of a plot point that like Hera was separate from the group on like the more flying mission, whereas they were on the ground. And like part of episode 8 was re-establishing contact with her, and Kanan just being really confident that she's made it because he knows her so well. So it's going to make any scene with those two very impactful going forward, now that it feels like they're much more open about their relationship. And I suppose going into the end of the series, it makes it all the more dramatic, because it's taken 4 seasons for us to establish that they're in a relationship, and now we're like episodes away from the end of the series, and we sort of know that something has to happen to Kanan. We know Hera survives, but something has to happen to Kanan, and that could be extremely tragic. So we'll see where they go, but it's definitely an interesting one to think about. Anything else within episode 7? I suppose Governor Pryce being in the episode I thought was interesting. Again, I've been referencing the Thrawn novel a lot recently, but I think one of the biggest takeaways, even more so than just Thrawn himself being so interesting based on that book, is Governor Pryce being like the main side plot to that book, of like it covers her origin story. And she, I think, is a character who, based on her appearances in the show, feels like a complete throwaway character. Like they've never really put any importance on her, apart from the fact that she has some sort of a connection to Lothal, and she's the governor now. But the fact the book goes into so much detail that it makes her a really, really interesting character, and actually makes me kind of go like, what have they been doing with her character arc in this show, in that they haven't referenced any of the really interesting stuff, that she's probably one of the more politically astute characters in the entire show, that what she did to get the position that she has right now as governor, that she has this somewhat respectful relationship with Thrawn, and that she's helped him, he's helped her, and they have this sort of like alliance where like he supplies her tactical and you know military advice, whereas she supplies him like political advice, because they both have that weakness of Thrawn actually is not very good at political stuff. He's so focused on, I suppose, in a way, the science of military combat and stuff like that, predicting people's movements, that he actually struggles to just predict like things in the political sphere, which is why like his career actually, like in terms of starting in the Empire and going up in ranks, like would have been so much quicker if he knew how to navigate the political landscape a lot better. So that's where Pryce comes in handy for Thrawn, and then Thrawn, of course, is helpful for Pryce in terms of maintaining her position. So I wish that relationship was made a little bit clearer. In general, just those two characters, I think, need more screen time, presenting them as actually notable characters. I hope before they potentially kill off either of them, they delve more into their kind of backstories. But for the most part, episode 7, the focus of it is just they get the hyperdrive. The hyperdrive sets up the Hera escaping with the the TIE Fighter Defender plans and flight data, which she gets back to them at the very end of the episode. Episode 8 is a very different episode. But interesting enough, they bring back the Mining Guild, which we've had a little bit of focus on in the past. They have I think it's Trandoshan, I think is the species, and they have a captain and a kind of big guy that they fight. I thought there was probably one of the funniest moments in the entire series in this episode, where there's a few moments actually of just them referencing like kind of some of the Ezra gags that they have throughout the series. Of like, one, back when he was like in his like younger design, they'd always have him go through the ventilation shafts. That he's the small guy in the group, we'll send him through the ventilation shafts. So seeing kind of older Ezra have to do that, is like the kid, was funny again. They have the whole gag of like, he's kind of always the one to go on the radio to try and do a voice to get past the guards. Even I think in some of the last few episodes he's done that, doing the kind of British accent. But here he has to do a Trandoshan accent, and I love how all he did was basically just like extend the S's like a lizard. And I love how the captain was just like, I don't sound like that. And like, as in he just didn't know how much he messes up the S's. But that was pretty funny. They ended up killing the captain. I thought it was kind of obvious that someone was going to go into the kind of trash compactor, the mining kind of forge thing, the furnace, I mean. And yeah, he slips on the lightsaber and goes in, which was kind of funny. Because you thought he was going to go in because he kind of stumbled into it, but then he actually slips on the lightsaber to go in. And Ezra just makes a joke about it. So they kind of make light of what is one of the more like dangerous deaths we've seen in the series, which I thought was funny. Other references are like Vizago was basically captured in one of the previous episodes, and like he's here in the slaves working on this kind of crawler here, and they kind of end up getting him out. They use him pretty nicely as well, as like he also does the stuff over the radio and is known for getting himself out of trouble. They end up getting these slaves, I suppose, to be part of the rebellion now that they freed them, which is interesting. But other than that, it wasn't the most interesting episode in that I do think it was weird to focus so much on just, here's this mining crawler thing that's like burning the planet, which I like that they explained why the planet was in the way it was, that it's because these things have been like ruining it to kind of get any sort of like material out of the planet, which maybe is meant to link into what they're really after, in that, you know, I'm at the point now where I'm like, is it something like there's some giant kyber crystal in the middle of the planet or something like that, that this will be the one that they actually use in the Death Star, after there's been a few of them now in the series that they've managed to like stop the Empire from getting, but they'll get the big one from the middle of the planet or something like that. Is that what they're looking for? I'm not exactly sure though. But you know, Zeb got a moment here in his big fight against the kind of Trandoshan kind of engineer guy. It wasn't the most amazing fight, but it was, you know, interesting enough. And then Hera on the other side of the episode is trying to convince the kind of higher ups in the rebellion to, you know, actually execute some sort of attack, because they do make a note that the thing with the TIE Defender, after analysing it, is that none of the rebel ships will be able to defeat them. Like, they they don't go as far to say it's like they're invincible, but it's like, it's very clear that like they'd lose probably like 5 ships trying to take down one TIE Defender, and multiply that by even like 10, and suddenly it's an unbeatable kind of ship. This would really change the course of the war going forward, so they have to take it out, but they don't have the supplies really to do it. So it's kind of setting up this, you know, need for basically a desperate battle against the Empire, that they're going to have to, you know, go all in, even though the Empire have Lothal extremely fortified. So it's going to be basically most of what the rebels have at this point, plus ground support from our team that we saw in this episode, against the Empire. How exactly it goes, I'm not entirely sure, because obviously I think Thrawn has been setting up that he has some sort of a plan in play. I assume Rook will be used to some degree. Governor Price will probably do something. Not entirely sure though, because they obviously we're still waiting to see just exactly how they set up the end of the series. But I think that's most everything I wanted to talk about here. I like the humor of just, Vizago, the captain, and Ezra kind of just communicating with each other. But that's, really it for the most part. Hera manages to get through to the group in the end, and they're all aware of the incoming attack. Ezra's happy because this is what he's been waiting for, like the full force of the rebellion coming in to help his planet, and there being a reason to do that now. So I'm pretty sure we have, I think it's just one episode more until they go on break, and then we come back, I suppose, early on in the new year with the rest of the season. I'm pretty sure that's what the plan is, but don't quote me on that. I'm not exactly sure what we're doing, but I think that's everything I wanted to say about both these episodes. I think overall this season has been, solidly good, but it's yet to, I think, be really, really impressive. I think that's the main thing, that nothing's been like brilliant just yet. We're definitely in this kind of holding pattern before we get to like the right at the end of the series. But then again, there are only 8 episodes left, and we've got to assume that the finale is probably going to be like a 3, maybe a 4-parter. So, and they're kind of building up to some sort of a mid-season finale in like the next episode or 2. So it's like, boom boom, probably next 2 episodes dealing with the big attack and whatever is going to happen with the TIE Defender. Then you're probably going to have like 2 episodes of setup probably for the finale, and then the finale will have to be this really big thing depending on what they do. So there's only so much stuff they can do going forward with the last group of episodes. I just hope they get it right, because it's been a good series overall. It perhaps hasn't had the same number of like amazing episodes as the Clone Wars had, but I think everyone's invested in these characters and cares about them, and we want to know what happens to them at the end. They just need to, I think, have the last few episodes be big and answer the questions that we have. But that's been the review for these 2 episodes. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the episodes, as well as what I had to say about them. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.